They fined me for fishing in my own lake. 3 days later, I bought the entire shoreline, and now they have to pay me to stand where they used to scream. Has your HOA ever crossed the line or fined you unfairly over something small like fishing? Flowers or flags? Let me know your story in the comments and where you're watching from. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true stories of quiet revenge and poetic justice. My name is Captain Aaron Maddox, retired U.S. Army, 82nd Airborne, medically discharged after 22 years of service, and I've handled IEDs with less volatility than the HOA of Willow Creek. I came here for peace, but peace wasn't profitable to them. I moved into Willow Creek 4 months ago, bought a modest 2-bedroom house at the edge of the cul-de-sac. Not too close to anyone, not too far from anything. I chose it because of the lake behind the neighborhood. That lake, it reminded me of simpler things: morning fog, quiet reflections, a place to cast a line without hearing mortars in the distance. But the moment I dropped a line, the first letter came. Unauthorized recreational use of community resource, $150 fine. There was no knock, no conversation. Just a bright yellow paper taped to my mailbox with bold red letters. Second notice, even though it was the first I'd seen. I thought it was a mistake. Until I walked up to the HOA office in the community building and met her, Barbara Holt, president of the HOA, queen of clipped heels, floral prints, and weaponized manners. "You're Aaron, yes? The new resident at parcel B14?" she asked, barely glancing up. "I am. I think there's been an error." She cut me off. "Oh no. No error. That lake is HOA-governed property. Fishing is regulated. You're not registered. Didn't read. The welcome packet? I'd read it, cover to cover. No line about lake permits. No restrictions on shoreline access behind the homes. I said as much." She gave me a tight, patronizing smile. "Well, we amended the guidelines last quarter. If you'd like, we can forward you the meeting minutes." I asked for a copy. She refused. That night, I received another letter. Failure to comply. Immediate suspension of HOA privileges, which apparently included access to the community garden, the parking lot near the clubhouse, and, yes, the lake. I laughed, because they didn't suspend a privilege. They declared war over water I never asked to share. The next morning, I didn't fish. I walked the edge of the lake, counted paces, studied markers, watched as other residents tossed in lines and were left alone. No fines on their doors, no letters taped to their mailbox, just me, the quiet woman with a military license plate. The one who didn't attend the potlucks or gossip on the neighborhood app. They thought I was alone. They were wrong. I made one phone call to Carla Hayes, old friend, former JAG officer, now a real estate attorney with a specialty in land use zoning. She drove down that weekend. We spent 3 hours reviewing parcel maps, county filings, tax records, and a surveyor's diagram from 1997. And that's when we found it. The HOA didn't own the lake. They leased shoreline access through a third-party company that had recently gone bankrupt. The ownership had quietly reverted back to county jurisdiction and was scheduled for auction the next month due to unpaid taxes. Carla looked at me and grinned. "Want to go fishing legally?" I shook my head. "I want to buy it." That week I made another call to the Veterans Land Trust, which I donated to in the past. I didn't need funding. I needed status. Veteran organizations get early notices on land auctions for recreational, rehabilitation programs. The director owed me a favor. I asked for a 1-day head start before the public listing. He gave me 3. The lake parcel was listed at $28,000. I bought it for $26,500, paid in full. Deeded under the Maddox Veteran Outdoor Wellness Foundation, nonprofit pending. Bank account opened, paperwork filed, the land was mine, the dock, the benches, the shoreline trail, the tiny boat ramp on the east end, every inch they'd patrolled, now belonged to me. 3 days after the purchase, I received another letter. Ongoing unauthorized use of lakefront, final warning. I walked it straight to Barbara's office. She was sipping iced tea, flipping through a binder. I handed her the letter, then the deed. She blinked. "This is a mistake," she said. I said nothing. She flipped through the document. Her jaw tightened. "This isn't enforceable." I replied, "You're right. That's why it's mine now." She tried to push back, claimed the HOA had pending rights. Carla emailed her a cease and desist within the hour. That evening, signs went up around the lake. Private veteran property access permit required for non-members. Contact mvowf.org for community use requests. The backlash was immediate. Residents started flooding the HOA with questions. Why is there a gate? Why do we have to pay to use the trail? Who owns this now? Barbara's response? Another community-wide email accusing me of land poaching and unilateral aggression against community harmony. I responded by installing trail cameras and hiring 2 off-duty deputies to monitor access on weekends. It wasn't about security. It was about sending a message. You don't own what you don't respect. Then came the real twist. I offered the HOA an olive branch, an annual permit, $5,000 flat, unlimited access for all residents under their coverage. No fines, no citations, no drama. They declined, called it extortion. So I split the access rights. Residents could apply individually, $5 each for an annual tag. Seniors? Free? Veterans? Free. The HOA still had to pay $5,000? That lake, once weaponized against me, now made them bleed a little every time someone dipped a toe in. I didn't yell, I didn't scream, I just stood my ground, quietly, and every ripple in that lake was a reminder that I'd already won. Barbara didn't go silent. She went strategic. Within a week of the lake's permit system going live, she announced an emergency HOA board meeting. The subject? Illegitimate property takeover and community access crisis. She thought a crowd would come ready to crucify me. What she didn't expect was who showed up sitting in the front row. 3 county clerks, 1 zoning officer, and Carla, polished, grinning, and holding a binder thicker than Barbara's sense of entitlement. Barbara opened the meeting with her usual tight-lipped monologue. "We are under threat, neighbors. One resident has exploited a loophole to limit access to our communal lake and is charging fees under the guise of a veteran nonprofit." She made air quotes around the word veteran. I didn't move, but the zoning officer's pen stopped mid-note. Barbara pressed on. "This attack on our lifestyle is a threat to everything Willow Creek was built on." Carla raised her hand. "Point of legal clarification?" Barbara blinked. "You don't live here." Carla just smiled. "True, but I represent the landowner whose deed you referred to as illegitimate. That's actionable defamation, by the way. Please continue." Barbara's smile twitched. She kept trying. Reframed it as an environmental concern. Said fishing could disturb the habitat. Suggested I was excluding the community from resources that were historically shared. Then came her big reveal. A motion to formally contest the lake's ownership through civil court. That's when the county clerk stood up. "We'd like to note for the record that the sale of parcel R17B was entirely legal and uncontested. The HOA had no stake or standing at the time of transaction. Any challenge would be dismissed as frivolous." You could hear a pin drop. Someone in the back clapped once, then stopped. Barbara fumed. After that meeting, something shifted. Neighbors started coming to me. A quiet woman named Maria brought a pie to my porch, said her husband used to get cited for putting a folding chair near the trail. He had a back injury and needed it. The HOA said it was clutter. Now, he could sit and fish again, without fear. A teenager dropped a thank you note in my mailbox. Said she and her friends had always wanted to paddleboard, but were too scared of getting reported. That weekend, I installed a picnic table and shaded awning near the lake's edge, free to use. Right next to it, a laminated copy of the deed, and beneath it, veteran-owned, public access compliant, no HOA jurisdiction. Barbara's next move, a letter to the county health board, alleging water contamination caused by bait runoff and unregulated fishing. They sent an inspector. She took samples, walked the entire lake with me. After an hour, she said, "Looks cleaner than most of our county parks." 2 days later, Barbara got fined for improper storm drain management. Turned out her side of the lake had a clogged culvert dumping yard waste and paint runoff into the ecosystem. Oh, karma, you poetic, punctual thing. But Barbara wasn't done. She tried to spin a new narrative, that I was running a business and profiting unfairly from neighborhood access. I didn't respond publicly. I just invited a local news team from Channel 12 to the lake one Saturday morning. They did a full feature. From service to stewardship, local veteran turns land ownership into public healing. They interviewed seniors using the benches, veterans fishing, kids running free. Barbara? She refused to comment, but her scowl made the B-roll. Meanwhile, Carla and I worked on the foundation's paperwork. We got 501c3 status within 6 weeks. Tax exemption, public goodwill, legal protections. Every dollar from those $5 permits went into maintenance, trail upgrades, and monthly free outdoor therapy sessions for vets. We even added a flagpole and held a small dedication. 30 residents showed up. Barbara didn't. That's when something strange happened. 3 other HOA members quit. One of them emailed me privately, said he was tired of the power games, that Barbara had rewritten bylaws without full votes, that citations were being printed and backdated to pad budgets. He attached PDFs proof. I forwarded them to Carla, who sent them to the county compliance board. Within 2 weeks, Willow Creek's HOA was under formal audit. Barbara tried to rally, started door-knocking, said I was inviting outsiders in. Tried to use fear, said home values would drop. But people had seen too much truth to swallow her fear anymore. What they saw was their neighbors using the lake, fewer fines, more laughter. Less paranoia. They saw the opposite of chaos. They saw ownership. Then came the annual HOA vote. Barbara was up for re-election. She lost to a 32-year-old schoolteacher named Daniel. Quiet, kind, lived on Lot A3. Had never spoken at a meeting until he read a short speech. We thought control made us feel safe. But what really makes us feel safe is community. Let's stop policing each other and start protecting each other. The crowd cheered. Barbara walked out mid-clap. The new board's first action? To apply for a group access permit to the lake. Daniel personally delivered the check, $5,000. I waived the fee. Instead, I gave them 12 months of free access. On one condition, they add a plaque at the lake entrance. This lake remains free because someone paid in silence what others never dared. In volume, Daniel agreed. Said he'd build it himself. That night, Carla called me, said the audit found $22,000 in undocumented citations and budget misallocation from the last 3 years. Barbara was formally disqualified from HOA leadership in any capacity, for life. The HOA wasn't destroyed. It was reformed by one woman with a fishing rod and a memory that never forgot how power is abused when no one says enough. Barbara couldn't leave quietly, even after the audit, even after the election loss, even after residents stopped listening. She needed to strike back, one last move to restore control, so she filed a civil suit. Barbara Holt versus Maddox Veteran, Outdoor Wellness Foundation. Her claim? Intentional displacement of traditional community rights. She even used the phrase emotional theft of communal identity. Carla nearly laughed reading it, but I didn't, because lawsuits, no matter how ridiculous, are still a form of power, especially when their real goal isn't to win, but to drain your peace. The papers arrived on a Monday. a manila envelope tucked under my welcome mat. Carla opened it, skimmed the language, and said one word: desperate. Barbara had filed pro se. No lawyer, just an endless string of emotional appeals, cherry-picked bylaws, and half-truths. But it was loud and designed to make noise. She knew news outlets would pick up on it, and they did. Local headlines lit up. HOA icon fights back, claims veteran land. Grab broke neighborhood spirit. Channel 5 asked for an interview. I gave them 5 minutes. No dramatics. Just a copy of the deed, the IRS nonprofit approval letter, and a spreadsheet showing how the lake's revenue funded veteran programs and trail maintenance. Not my pocket. The anchor ended the segment with this: Captain Maddox hasn't sued anyone. She just bought land others took for granted. That quote stuck. It made the rounds. Still, the lawsuit moved forward. Barbara filed motion after motion. She demanded emergency injunction to shut down the lake trail, a freeze on all permit activity, a reversion of ownership to community trust oversight. Every motion failed. The judge warned her about misuse of the court's time, so she shifted strategy, started posting flyers. Lake lockout. Veteran greed. Stapled to lampposts. Left in mailboxes. Slipped under doors. I didn't respond. I just took pictures. Logged every one. Filed a harassment report. Then came the HOA meeting where everything changed. Barbara showed up uninvited. Walked straight to the front. Held up one of her flyers. Tried to speak over the agenda. Daniel, the new HOA president, stood calmly and said, "Ms. Holt, this is a member-led meeting. You are not on the speaking list." She shouted back, "You've let a predator take our lake." Dead silence. Then from the third row, an older man stood up. Vietnam vet. Name's Bill. Walks with a cane. He said, "No predator ever gave me a free place to fish." She did. Barbara didn't respond. She left without another word. The next day, her case was dismissed with prejudice. The judge called it a baseless attempt to undermine legitimate property rights under the guise of moral outrage. It was over. Barbara's name was now tied to a failed lawsuit against a veteran nonprofit. And the neighborhood? They didn't celebrate. They just moved forward. Carla helped me send a final letter. Not to Barbara, to the residents. It included a full financial report of the foundation's spending. Trail maintenance receipts, photos of the new benches, the calendar for the upcoming Veterans Wellness event. It ended with one sentence. This land isn't owned, it's protected. No signature, just the logo. That day, 20 new permit requests came in, all with the note: "Thank you for defending what matters." Barbara moved out 2 weeks later, for sale sign, quick cash offer, gone by Friday. No one waved goodbye. Her house now belongs to a retired Coast Guard medic and his husband. They built a wind chime out front. No one fined them. That's when I knew for sure. The fight was finished. But I still kept my routines. I walked the lake every morning, checked the shoreline, picked up trash, talked to whoever wanted to talk. One morning, a kid asked if he could help me repaint the old dock. I asked why. He said, "Because my mom says this place stays clean 'cause someone gave a damn." We painted it together. Quietly, no press, no plaque, just wood, water, and purpose. That summer, we hosted a community fishing tournament. No entry fee. Kids fished in pairs with veterans. Every team got a medal. No one lost. Barbara's name didn't come up once. But when someone asked who started all this, I said, a lake that deserved better. Because revenge isn't always fire and fury. Sometimes it's the echo of calm that remains after the noise tries and fails to return. By the end of summer, the lake had stopped being a battleground. It was just a lake again. Kids fished from the dock. Couples walked the trail. Veterans came for peace, not to prove anything. And me? I stopped counting the scars, not the physical ones. The ones in the mind, the kind that build when silence becomes your only weapon. The new HOA board never tried to take back the lake. Instead, they built around it, literally. They installed benches with armrests, ADA-accessible ramps, even small markers that told the story of how the space was reclaimed. Not through lawsuits or protests, but by a woman who decided peace was worth protecting. One plaque sat near the dock. It read, "This lake once belonged to no one. Now it belongs to everyone who remembers why silence matters." No one asked for my permission to post it. They didn't have to. They'd learned. The Veteran Foundation continued to grow. Carla helped bring in grant writers. The trail was expanded, a new garden planted, and every quarter we hosted what we called reflection days. Not speeches, not ceremonies, just stillness. People came, walked quietly, sometimes sat in a folding chair and stared across the water. Sometimes they cried. Sometimes they left without saying a word. But always they returned. We added a memory board on the trail. Visitors could pin notes, names, or thoughts. On the first board, someone wrote, "My brother never made it home, but he would have loved this place. Thank you." I never found out who wrote it. Didn't need to. Some words don't need a face to land hard. The foundation got national attention a year later. A veteran publication picked up the story. From find to founder, how one woman turned a lake into a legacy. They wanted an interview. I almost declined. But Carla said, "Sometimes peace needs a voice." So I gave one. I sat down, told the whole story. Not with fire, not with anger, just facts, a fine, a deed, a strategy, and the quiet refusal to be moved by fear. The article went viral. Other HOAs reached out. Other veterans, too. People who had been pushed, fined, silenced, who thought no one would ever listen if they didn't scream. They saw something different in the story, that you could take power without becoming what you hate. That fall, a man knocked on my door, older, quiet, wore a Navy cap. He said he'd been watching the story unfold for months, that his town had a similar situation with a pond, that he didn't want to fight, but he wanted to change things. I gave him the paperwork templates, the permit forms, even Carla's number. He thanked me, said, "You made this feel possible." Then he saluted. I didn't return it. I just opened the door wider and said, "You want some coffee?" The HOA eventually updated its charter. Removed any language about control or compliance, added clauses about resident autonomy, community stewardship, and mutual accountability. One clause was named after me, though I never asked for it. The Maddox Clause. No governing body may claim authority over property not legally acquired, nor interfere with access unless voted by a supermajority of residents. I didn't attend the meeting where they passed it, didn't need to. But Daniel, the HOA president, sent me a photo. The vote? Unanimous. Barbara was never heard from again. Rumor said she moved to another state. Some say she joined a different HOA. I hope quietly that she learned something, not from punishment, but from watching what happened when her voice stopped mattering. The dock got repainted again the next spring. This time, I didn't help. The Pau neighborhood kids did it. No one told them to. They just showed up one day with paint, brushes, and a speaker playing music. They worked for 3 hours, laughed, sang, left paint on their clothes, and didn't care. At the end, one of them carved something into the railing. Built for silence, protected by one. They didn't ask for permission, just like I hadn't asked for theirs. And somehow it all felt right. The legacy wasn't mine alone. It belonged to every person who chose to listen instead of panic, to question instead of comply, to build instead of burn. At the 3-year mark, Carla handed me a small box. Inside was a brass medallion. One side had the Veteran Foundation logo. The other, just one line. "Justice isn't loud. It just doesn't move." She said, "You never got a medal for this." I said, "That's because I didn't fight." She smiled. "But you did win." Sometimes I still sit by the lake with my rod in hand. Most days I don't even bait the hook. I just sit there, watch the water, let the breeze move through me, and remember what it felt like. The moment I realized power doesn't have to roar, it just has to hold. They fined me for fishing, so I bought the lake, built a sanctuary, and left a legacy no one could ever write a ticket for.